Just to start, for foreign investment restrictiveness, we are currently ranked as the third most restrictive of 83 countries. No, the Lee Kuan Yew in the 1990s predicted that we would fall behind Malaysia and Thailand. This was when he came to the Philippines to speak speak to the Filipinos. He encouraged us to open up to competition and join the ranks. Today, after 30 years, our per capita GDP is half of that of Thailand. We are a third of that of Malaysia, and we've fallen behind Indonesia and Vietnam. We can see also, since Megawide joined the forces with Indian foreign groups, our airports, from being considered the worst in the world, has won international awards and got built on time. And we also had more than doubled the tourists in Cebu, among other things. Since National Grid took over, the brownouts became a thing of the past. And since we took over from the Japanese our maintenance of the rails, we had 5 or more breakdowns a day for a number of years. Malaysian capital helped build our early elevated highway successes. We lost the petrochemical plant, $500 million some 30 years ago in Bataan because the congressman there would not allow it to be moved to Batangas. Lee Ka-shing won the Subic port twice, which again, also about 30 years ago, wherein he promised that he would bring a third or so of the volume of Hong Kong directly to the Philippines. And he won it twice and lost it twice because of foreign ownership, supposedly, even though it was approved initially. And so we lost bringing in that volume 30 years ago. It is not really foreign direct investments we are after, but the positive effects, which requires some added factors we would like to say, but is frequently not discussed by pundits or think tanks. No, these we are referring to culture, competence in math and language, and working smart. Because without these, even without foreign direct investments, what will happen is just we would lose control of our industries. No, we of course we need faster logistics, seaports, airports, digital infrastructure, but as much for manufacturing and being a processing hub and not just for consumption. Without this, we cannot protect against foreign preponderance in the markets. We have to realize, of course, that many foreign investments and influence are already here. We have to consider how are we going to go through the process, and we have to understand in any case that these laws and implementations are evolving. We cannot be too fixed, no? And things change. So our telcos are capitalized by Indonesians and Singaporean government state-owned enterprises. National Grid by the Chinese. Our media content and advertising is now controlled by the US through Netflix, Facebook, gaming, and the predominant use of our people's time at over 9 hours a day. But that is all right, because these things helped us move to the middle income GDP, which was started, in fairness, by liberalizations under President Ramos as well. No, a lot of the major moves were done at that time. No, but so what we're saying that these public service amendments and foreign investment laws should be amended, but they should also be consistent and non-discriminatory. And we should recognize that they can change over time. They are not fixed. We need to adjust it to new technologies, cultures, and definitions of security. For instance, telcos are no longer as important as broadband access. Media has reduced roles for TV and publications. We have actually lost control of our medias. Services have been outstripping manufacturing in many countries. So the formulation, we note that the formulators of this act, these amendments, have taken flexibility into account. So what we need to see is not just this law. We have to look at how we are going to execute it, and we need to have a culture of bringing together talent pools in our search for technocrats to enter government and create the right incentives. So the law on allowing the investments alone will not work. We have to get into this work together and reduce our concentration on politics to allow new capital and technology inflows from abroad to build our new markets for us, our new capacities, and accelerate our recovery, and a chance to prepare for the next fourth stage of industrial revolution. We have already lost the previous stage. Let us go leapfrog into the fourth stage. Meanwhile, I would like to share with you an image from the past, one of the fathers of ASEAN progress, Lee Kuan Yew's advice to the Philippines. No, if we could play a 2-minute video, please.
Now, the experience of Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia
It's not
is
showing.
especially
It's
relevant.
not showing.
From the 1950s to the 1970s, their policies were like those of the Philippines. They protected their markets to establish import substituting industries. Their products were poor and growth was slow because these were monopolies with no competition. But by the early 1980s, just about 10 years ago, first Thailand and next Malaysia changed policies. They learned from the policies of the NIEs. They watched Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, where foreign investments and export-oriented growth made for booming growth. Thailand and Malaysia started to deregulate and to liberalize. They allowed 100% direct foreign investments. They cut down protection and opened up their industries and services to competition. Through the infusion of technology and high-quality management from successful countries like Japan, the NIEs, America, and Europe, their goods and services became internationally competitive. These two countries had their economic growth bouncing up from 3 to 4% a year to 8 to 10% per annum. Few years after that, Indonesia, watching what had happened in Thailand and Malaysia, also changed course. They are now pressing ahead with deregulation and liberalization to open up their economy and make their products internationally competitive. Our foreign investors would not have gone into Thailand, Malaysia, or Indonesia if they had not got their macroeconomic policies right. Second, concentrate on economics, not politics. Or more accurately, stop the politicking. Lift restrictions on trade and investment, dismantle the web of measures which keep out foreign companies and make Philippine companies compete to survive, not thrive at the expense of the ordinary Filipino. Third, build up your infrastructure like power stations, roads, communications, either in partnership with or completely through the private sector if you don't have the funds. In conclusion, I hope I have provoked you. Businessmen, the government, the establishment, the press and TV of the Philippines. Provoked you into setting your priorities for getting your act together so that you can achieve your potential. If you maximize the next 6 years of the Ramos administration by freeing your economy, attracting and getting the investment, and making them profitable, and if you work hard at creating conditions that make them increasingly profitable, then you will get yourselves back into the mainstream of growth and development and be in the same league as Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. The OECD countries, the OECD calls them now the new dynamic economies of Asia. You can be and should be one of them. Thank you.
That was exactly 30 years ago. Thank you, gentlemen.